Howdy everybody, I am Gene Hoglan and I am here to talk some drums with all of you. When I was growing up, drums were more or less everything to me. You know, they were the easiest instrument to pick up. You know, I really enjoyed my early air drumming. I think all future musicians do. But for me, playing guitar seemed impossible. And you know, playing any kind of stringed instrument seemed impossible. But drums, you just sit down and start hitting things. You can air drum and learn a song as opposed to air guitaring it and learning it, you know, and so with drums there's just more room for screwing up when you're growing up. You know, you just hit things hard and a lot, and that's where drums kind of started for me, was just enjoying being able to hit something and make a lot of noise and do it well. You know, I tried to do it well, you know, and over time drums have evolved into my life, I suppose. I've never really done anything but play drums, you know. Like I had one 9-to-5 job growing up, and I left that in the 80s, so I haven't had a job since the 80s. Drumming has been my job, therefore drumming's my life. That's my livelihood, and that's something that all of us drummers share, is having rhythm being so innate within all of us that we all get to live through rhythm and drums. So that's pretty much what drums mean to me. You know, life is all rhythm to me. I constantly have beats in my head. I constantly have ideas going on at all times, you know, and I'm a super proponent of any sort of click that you hear inside the room. I'll use that and start writing beats to it, you know, the whir of a refrigerator or something, or the drip of a faucet. Right now, my turn signal in my car, I have my left turn signal in the front is out. Therefore, when I do the signal, it does this crazy that's a great, you know, shuffle rhythm. And anybody that knows my playing knows I love shuffles. So that's, you know, I get to play a drum beat at every stoplight where I'm turning left. That's killer. So there you go. When I was young and learning how to play drums, period, all of my teachers were the drummers in my favorite bands that I would listen to and I would learn from. You know, I've always been a proponent of learning through osmosis. If I were able to learn anything, like I never learned how to read music or anything like that. So I just listened to all of my favorite drummers through every album that I could get my hands on. So that's how I learned, and I'm still learning to this day. You know, I've never shut down the knowledge, and I will definitely never be a drummer that says, "Oh, I know everything I need to know," because I do not at all. One thing I have tried to do with my career is I've tried to be an all-encompassing drummer. To where it's like, if you need this kind of style, well, I'll try to play that. If you need that kind of style, I'll try to play that. You know, obviously, if you need the fast, double bass hauling stuff, you know, I'm pretty decent at that. So where I have the most, I guess, fun these days is when somebody comes to me and says, hey, you know, we've got to go like way off in left field with this, and you know, we need a shuffle beat, or we need an old Motown kind of beat, or anything like that. And I don't get that very often. I don't get that request often. So when it does happen, when somebody says, look, let's go really out of control, out of the box, I really enjoy doing that. So I still pick up licks that are really cool. And basically, you know, I've always said that all of my licks that I play, I've probably stolen from somebody. And I always figured that if I steal as much as possible, I will end up evolving into having my own style. So like one way I've tried to evolve the essence of drums or whatever is, like, for instance, using two rides. You know, maybe other guys were doing that before me, but I wasn't really familiar with that. But I tell you, you know, I mean, you got two hands, use two rides. You know, you see guys playing a disco beat on the hi-hat, that sort of thing. Hey, do it on two rides. You know, that's fun. And So yeah, I'm always trying to evolve, and I've learned so much just by absorbing. I don't know if there's many licks that I've actually tried to figure out, but that's how I learn the best. Is if I have something to listen to, then I'll just listen to something over and over and over. Like when I play with other bands and I'm listening to their material and I'm trying to do what their drummer did, a lot of times I'll be like 90% playing their licks, and I know it's not my lick, but it's equally challenging learning somebody else's stuff, especially if it's a challenging drum part. Then that's always fun. Sean Reinert, Raymond Herrera, those guys had some challenging parts that it was like, okay, I'm going to learn these. If you're playing an old Fear Factory song or a Death Human song, you want to play that pretty much like the guys who originated it did. And in a situation like Sean from Human, if he's, now Death is doing more stuff and he is playing with them, he might have evolved a lot of his style. He might not play like that at all anymore, but if I were to jump on stage and play a Death Human song, I would play it pretty much like on the album. So I have been asked if there is a hierarchy to the way I view my kit, and like, is there something that I lean more towards, like say kick and snare, or is it, a lot of toms, then snare, or what takes the most precedence in my style? And it's a great question, and it's something I've never been asked before, and I guess I would imagine that my hierarchy does indeed go, kick and snare. That's one thing I'm known for. But it really is dependent upon the project. With a band like, say, for example, Fear Factory, playing their stuff is, you're going to play a lot of kick and snare, some hi-hat, some ride. And that's about that. But with, say, a band like Death, I did try to bring a lot of handwork to it. That was a real fusion style that was trying to come through with me. I was listening to a whole lot of Steve Gadd in the Al Di Meola era. I stole a whole lot of Steve Gadd licks on individual thought patterns. And I think that was obviously the most hand-oriented stuff I had done up until that time, because with Dark Angel it was pretty much, kind of meat and potatoes, try to thrash, some classy licks here and there. But with Death, that was a hand hierarchy, and there were a lot of toms in Death, I thought. And then with strapping, there was a lot of both, but with that was starting to lean more towards kick and snare. You didn't hear me doing a lot of flashy stuff with my hands in strapping, and like with Testament, I do more hand than feet. I would think I try to bring in some feet with Testament, but yeah, I guess that's one way I'm able to bring a well evolved, I suppose, approach to any band. Because if there are bands that are like, dude, I'm all about the toms, give me lots of toms, lots of single strokes on the toms, but come up with some cool beats to do so, some cool permutations of a lot of tom work, I think I could do that. And then obviously if people are saying, hey, give me a lot of that, machine gun, staggered, double kick stuff, and I want to use a lot of that, I'm cool with that too. So try to be evolved in all ways. And yeah, I like that. Proves that I was learning early on that I really got into. For instance, like there's the bimbe beat from, like, say, the song Casino by Al Di Meola. It starts off with a bimbe beat, which is Steve Gadd playing on a cowbell and a snare and a kick drum. And the beat is really simple, but it's just really tasty, and I loved it. That sort of thing right there, I just thought that was really tasty. And when I joined Death, they had a lot of beats that were like say for instance in Pull the Plug, in the middle section, there's the you could play that with double bass. Or, you know, they played it pretty simply, just on a, I think, a ride and a single kick. Maybe it was on a hi-hat. There's a nice evolution right there. So I was into super tasty drumming when I was in Death, so I figured, hey, play it kind of tasty. That's just a fun permutation on a, you know, you've got the solid beat, and then you could turn it into something tasty and Latin and super cool. And another beat that I really dug a lot was, like, say, in like Black Magic Woman by Santana. The bass line at the end, I just always loved that bass line, the boom doo 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 doo. I always liked that beat. That was always a cool beat. I always dug playing that. I never got to do that beat too often in many albums, but that was a beat I really liked. And I suppose you can augment that into kind of the samba beat, I suppose, which here's a beat that one of my more obscure bands, the Almighty Punch Drunk, we used this beat a lot in it. And I also used it at the end of Skeksis from Strapping Young Lad. It's this beat that goes... And that's where you kind of have the bump, 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 that kind of pulse. I love that pulse. And so that's a really fun pulse to play over. That's a fun one. I like those beats a lot. Like, for instance, when playing on a kit, like, say if you're doing a lot of tom work, one thing that I have tried to do is use the entire tom. Like, you've got so much of a surface there that if you start, like, even on this practice pad, it changes the tone. You've got a bunch of different tones. This actually gets, to me, it gets lower, and that's higher. That's lower and darker. That's higher and brighter. Usually on a mounted tom, like, I'll do rim shots on the toms, you know, and I utilize that in actual fills, you know. There's, on the latest Death Clock record, I mean, there's a spot where I'm definitely hitting rim shots on 2 toms, and that, you know, you have your tom tone that you hit right in the center. You know what that sounds like. But then when you start hitting these, like, rim shots on the toms, like here, for instance, you can play it as loud as you want. There's that tone. But you start doing kind of a rim shot on this thing. I'm hitting as hard there as I am right here. You just get this mass, this big mass here that is whacking the entire tom, and you're hitting a rim with it. That just brings out a really, like, kind of tone, you know. It's not this nice bong, bong, bong. You got the kang, 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 I guess, of hitting on a rim. Use all the drum, you know. I use all the snare when I'm doing it, and, you know, like I say, my hands are constantly, like, shifting on the sticks when I'm playing. You know, I'm choking up, and I let them go, especially if the sticks are really heavy. These are 66-gram sticks, which these are really light sticks for me. I don't know if you can see the 66 on there, but I have all my sticks numbered. Usually I play around a 68 or 69, 70-gram stick. Right now I'm playing really light sticks, and I'm unfortunately getting used to playing lighter gram sticks, which is kind of a shame for me. But a couple of days ago, the first show of Testament's tour. I admit, I haven't played drums in 2 weeks. Haven't even touched drumsticks in 2 weeks before the tour. We flew out, played the show, and I was using, we found some 68s, which my normal weight, those are now getting too heavy for me. So in the middle of, what's the song? Into the Pit, the chorus of Into the Pit. I'm playing one part, it's a rock beat. And I'm choking up on it. And then it's back. It goes from a rock beat standard to like a polka beat thrash. And, the rock beat, I'm playing like that. And then I kick over to the thrash and I'm doing that, And because that doesn't have to be, a rock beat doesn't have to be, but the thrash beat does. So I'm choking up a little bit on that. Use all the drums, use all your stick too. I don't grip them tightly in one style. They're moving all over the place, just like, I'm going to choke up on the toms. I'll do rim shots on the toms to bring out a different flavor, I suppose. And I like doing that sort of thing. So there you go. Back when I was using the boat propeller, I've told this story before, but people have asked me, how did you come to use a boat propeller? And a very brief pre-story to it would be when I was in Europe with Dark Angel in 1991 or so. Over here in Europe, especially in Germany, they have metal ashtrays everywhere. And I'm looking around here, and it's probably a non-smoking building. There are not a lot of ashtrays around here, but there used to be, they'd come in all sorts of sizes and all sorts of tones. Like some would be just kind of plastic sounding, and other would actually have like a little ding if you'd knock your finger against them. And it turned out that I could jab a cymbal stand through one and then just mount it, and I'd be playing that, just as an accent, instead of a splash. And when I got off that tour, for instance, a friend came up to me and said, "Hey, Gene, I hear that you are playing with, I heard you were playing like crazy metal stuff over there, like mic basses and ashtrays and stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah, I was. It was really fun." He's like, "Here, try this." And he put a boat propeller in my hand. And I was like, "Whoa, that's really crazy." And, it was not the easiest thing to mount. Because, a boat propeller has a hole that big in it, and no cymbal stand is that thick. So basically what we did is we just shoved a whole ton of like kind of hi-hat felts, the big thick ones. We'd put them on just mount like that many, 8 hi-hat felts, those big round ones. And we would just kind of drop shove the propeller on there. And it wouldn't mute it because that little base that it's on is so thick that it was a challenge to mount. But finally, when we figured it out how to mount it, it became easy. But you could never clamp it down because you couldn't clamp it. So every time I would hit it, it would spin once, and just depending on the angle I'd hit it, it would spin, and it would give me like this kind of tritone, this gang, gang, gang sort of sound. And so every time I'd hit it, it'd spin once, and the next time I'd hit it, it'd give me a separate tone. So that was one thing that I thought was super cool about it, and it was really fun looking, and it was just something cool to, hey, maybe it gave some other drummers some ideas to, hey, he's playing a boat propeller, I'm going to go play a bar stool or something, I don't know. A couple of years later, I started using an M14 cannon shell, and that was a similarly challenging thing to mount, but we were able to mount that. And that's just this big giant shell, it's a giant gun shell, it's like that thick, and I had one of those, mounted that, and that was really fun to play, and that had a much deeper, lower tone than the very, top endy propeller. It had a big gang to it. That was really fun sounding. You'll hear that one a little bit on Symbolic, not much, but a little bit. One thing I wonder, if I were to go back and meet the Gene starting out in his career, and be able to give him some advice that I've learned over the years, is one thing that I was when I was young, I was definitely an individualist. I was a nonconformist. I was a, you know, if you guys are doing that, I'm going to do this kind of guy. And that ended up helping me very much by not being what everybody else was, not doing what everybody else did. I was able to create an individualness, I guess, an individuality in myself that has really helped over the years. You know, it's helped me stay true and keep, you know, keep my integrity. So the one thing I would tell that young Gene is, and I do tell young guys this now, that I had to learn over the course of a 30-year career, was learn how to read contracts. That's what I would tell that young Gene, because that young Gene got screwed a few times because I was young and stupid. I didn't know how to read a contract. So that would be the biggest piece of advice that I would learn, that I would give to my younger self, is right off the bat. So you don't have to go through years of pain and knives in your back. Learn how to read a contract. Take a business course. Learn what the figures are, and you will be owed less money as you get older. There you go. So that's the big thing. That's it now. So thanks for everybody for listening, and I appreciate your ears and your eyes, and thank you very much for all your years of support. And it's been really fun talking some drums with you. So everybody have a good time. We'll see you.